My name is Chloe, and I never thought a single piece of paper could carry so much weight. It was just an envelope, cream-colored with gold lettering, but when I pulled it from my mailbox, my heart did a little flip. Victoria, my cousin, was getting married. The invitation felt like a fragile bridge to a family that had long since pushed me to the edges. I'm 36, a single mom to my 9-year-old daughter, Riley, and if I'm honest, I've spent years feeling like the odd one out. But standing there in my cramped apartment kitchen, holding that invitation, I let myself hope maybe this was a chance to belong again. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest stories. Your support means the world. If you find this video valuable, please give it a like. I'd love to know where you're watching from, and so would our other viewers. Drop your city in the comments below. Now let's dive into the story. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. The walls are thin, the carpet's worn, but it's home. By day, I'm a nurse's aide, wiping brows and checking charts. By night, I'm hunched over my laptop, tweaking logos as a freelance graphic designer. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on and puts Riley's favorite strawberry yogurt in the fridge. Riley's my everything, bright, curious, with a laugh that makes even my worst days feel lighter. She's the reason I keep going, even when life feels like it's stacked against me. Growing up, I was always compared to Victoria. She's 5 years younger, dazzling, the kind of person who walks into a room and owns it. She's a marketing exec now, always posting about her perfect life online, yoga retreats, wine tastings, you name it. My Aunt Eleanor, her mom, treated her like royalty. If Victoria wanted something, it appeared. Me? I was the clumsy cousin who got hand-me-downs and lectures about making better choices. When I got pregnant at 26, everything shifted. Riley's dad swore he'd stay, but by the time I was showing, he was gone. No call, no note, just a hole where his promises used to be. My family didn't rally around me. Eleanor sighed and said, "Well, you've made your bed." My own parents, caught in their own mess, barely checked in. I raised Riley alone, and somehow, that made me the family's cautionary tale. So when that wedding invitation arrived, I hesitated. It wasn't just about showing up. It was about stepping back into a world that never felt like mine. Riley found me staring at it one night, my coffee gone cold. "What's that, Mom?" she asked, her ponytail bouncing as she leaned over. I told her about the wedding, and her eyes lit up. "Can I wear a sparkly dress?" she begged. That sealed it. I couldn't say no to her excitement, even if my gut churned at the thought of facing Eleanor's judgment or Victoria's spotlight. I wanted Riley to feel part of something bigger, to see family as more than just the two of us against the world. I stretched my budget to the breaking point. Riley got a pale blue dress with tiny rhinestones. She twirled in it for days, calling it her princess gown. I rented a simple navy dress for myself, nothing fancy, but it fit well enough to make me feel halfway confident. I did my own makeup in the bathroom mirror while Riley practiced her fancy walk in the living room, giggling when she tripped over her sneakers. "We're gonna have the best time, right, Mom?" she said. I smiled, swallowing the knot in my throat. "The best," I promised, hoping I wasn't lying. The day of the wedding, we drove an hour to the venue, a sprawling estate with manicured lawns and chandeliers that looked like they belonged in a movie. Riley gasped as we pulled up, whispering, "It's like a castle." I parked our beat-up sedan between sleek SUVs, feeling the familiar sting of being out of place. Inside, white roses spilled over every surface, and a string quartet played softly. Guests in tailored suits and glittering dresses milled around, their laughter sharp and effortless. I smoothed Riley's dress, adjusted my own, and took her hand. "Stay close, okay?" I said. She nodded, her eyes wide, already enchanted. We found our seats at table 12, tucked near the back by a service door. I laughed under my breath, fitting, I thought. Riley didn't notice, too busy staring at the gold-rimmed plates. Victoria floated through the room, radiant in her gown, her fiancé Lucas at her side, all easy charm and polished smiles. When she passed us, her eyes flicked over me. "Chloe, you came," she said, her voice smooth but cool, like she was checking a box. She glanced at Riley. She's adorable. Then she was gone, swept back into her adoring crowd. Eleanor didn't even look my way, her attention fixed on fawning guests. Riley leaned into me. Mom, is that the bride? She's like a queen. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, she's something special. As the ceremony began, I tried to focus on Riley's excitement, but a quiet unease settled in my chest. I caught whispers from nearby tables. My name, mentioned with a smirk or a raised eyebrow. That's the cousin, right? The one who... The words trailed off, but I didn't need to hear the rest. I'd heard them my whole life. I straightened in my chair, determined to get through this for Riley. She deserved a night of magic, even if I had to grit my teeth to give it to her. But as the reception started and glasses clinked, that unease grew sharper, like a warning I couldn't quite name. The ceremony unfolded like a dream I wasn't part of. Victoria stood at the altar, her gown catching the light like it was woven from starlight, every fold perfect, every smile rehearsed. Lucas, her fiancé, looked at her with a warmth that made the room sigh. Vows were exchanged, rings slipped onto fingers, and the crowd erupted in applause as they kissed. I clapped too, my hands moving on autopilot, but my chest felt tight. Riley, perched beside me, whispered, Mom, do all weddings look like this? I brushed a curl from her face and said, Some do, sweetheart. This one's pretty fancy. She grinned, clutching the program like it was a treasure map, and for a moment, I let her joy pull me along. We shuffled into the reception hall, a cavernous space draped in ivory linens and twinkling lights. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, casting patterns across the polished floor. Riley's eyes widened, tracking a waiter balancing a tray of champagne flutes. Can I have one? She asked, pointing. I laughed softly. Not yet, kiddo. How about some juice? I flagged down a server, who handed her a glass of sparkling apple cider. She sipped it, pretending to be a grown-up, and I wished I could bottle her innocence, keep it safe from the world I knew too well. Our table was near the back, close enough to hear the clatter of the kitchen. I helped Riley unfold her napkin, tucking it over her dress to shield those rhinestones she loved so much. She was too busy marveling at the centerpiece, a tower of roses and candles, to notice the glances from other guests. I felt them, though. A woman in a sequin dress leaned toward her friend, murmuring something that ended with my name. I kept my eyes on Riley, pretending I hadn't heard, but my stomach twisted. I'd spent years dodging those whispers, the ones that painted me as the cousin who messed up. Tonight, I just wanted to blend in. Victoria floated through the room, her laugh cutting through the hum of conversation. When she passed our table, her gaze lingered on me for a split second, her smile sharp, like she was sizing me up. Enjoying yourself, Chloe? She asked, her voice syrupy. I nodded, forcing a smile. It's beautiful, Victoria. Congratulations. She tilted her head, like she was waiting for more, then drifted away, her perfume lingering like a warning. Riley tugged my sleeve. Mom, why doesn't Aunt Eleanor talk to you? I froze, her question slicing through my careful calm. Some people are just busy with their own stuff, sweetheart, I said, smoothing her hair. She frowned but didn't push, distracted by the arrival of our salads. The meal passed in a blur of clinking glasses and small talk I avoided. I cut Riley's chicken for her, laughing when she got sauce on her chin, and tried to ignore the way Eleanor's voice carried from the head table, praising Victoria's perfect taste. I caught my own reflection in a wine glass, tired eyes, navy dress, a woman trying too hard to belong. I pushed the thought away, focusing on Riley's chatter about the dessert table. She was happy, and that was enough. At least, I told myself it was. Then the speeches started. The MC tapped the microphone, and the room settled, all eyes turning to the head table. Lucas's brother Mason went first, cracking jokes about Lucas's old college pranks. The crowd chuckled, the mood light and warm. I relaxed a little, sipping my water, letting myself believe the night might end without a hitch. Riley clapped when Mason finished, her hands tiny against the roar of applause. Then Victoria stood, her champagne flute catching the light, her posture flawless. The room hushed, hanging on her every move. I shifted in my seat, a flicker of hope sparking despite myself. Maybe she'd say something about family, something that included us, even if it was just a nod. "I want to thank you all for being here," Victoria began, her voice smooth as velvet. "This day means everything to me, to Lucas, to our families." I leaned forward, my fingers brushing Riley's hand. Maybe this was it, the moment I'd been waiting for, the olive branch I'd dreamed of. Victoria's eyes swept the room, then landed on me, her smile widening. "And of course," she said, pausing just long enough to make my heart skip, "I want to give a special shout-out to my cousin Chloe." My breath caught. Riley looked up at me beaming, and for one foolish second, I thought she might say something kind. But then her tone shifted, and that flicker of hope turned to ice. Victoria's voice carried across the room, sweet but edged with something sharper. "Chloe's always been inspiring," she said, her smile never wavering. "I mean, raising a kid all by herself, no partner, no one to lean on. She's like a superhero, right? Except, well, nobody's lining up to cast her in the sequel." The words landed like a slap, and the room erupted in laughter, sharp, careless, the kind that fills a space and leaves no air. I froze, my hand tightening around the stem of my water glass. Riley's fork paused halfway to her mouth, her eyes darting to me, wide and confused. I wanted to believe I'd misheard her, but Victoria kept going, her flute tilted like a prop. "Seriously, it's amazing how she shows up, keeps pushing forward, even when, nobody really wants her to." More laughter, louder this time, rippling through the tables like a wave. My face burned, the heat crawling up my neck, but I couldn't move. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. I glanced around, searching for a single face that wasn't twisted in amusement, but most guests were too busy clinking glasses, toasting the joke. A few looked uneasy, their smiles faltering, but they didn't speak. Riley's voice broke through, small and trembling. "Mom, why are they laughing at you?" She leaned closer, her little hand gripping my arm, her brow furrowed like she was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense. My throat closed up. I wanted to answer, to tell her it was nothing, just grown-up nonsense, but the words wouldn't come. All I could see was her face, the way her excitement from earlier had crumbled into something fragile. That was what broke me, not Victoria's words, not the laughter, but the fact that my daughter was watching her mother be turned into a punchline. Then came Eleanor's voice, loud and deliberate from the head table. "Oh, Chloe's a trooper," she called out, her wine glass raised like a scepter. "She's been through the ringer, but she still cleans up nice, doesn't she? Not bad for damaged goods." The laughter swelled again, crueler now, slicing through me like glass. I felt my vision blur, not with tears. I wouldn't let them fall, not here, but with the weight of every eye on me, every smirk, every whispered aside. I was no longer a guest, no longer family. I was entertainment, a story to be passed around with the dessert plates. Across the table, I saw my cousin Sarah, Victoria's younger sister, pull out her phone, her lips curled in a smirk as she angled it toward me. The tiny red light of her camera blinked, and my stomach dropped. She was recording this, capturing every second of my humiliation to share with who knows how many followers. The thought of this moment living online, replayed and mocked by strangers, made my hands shake. I gripped my fork, the metal biting into my palm, anchoring me to the table when all I wanted was to run. I looked at Riley again, her eyes searching mine for answers I didn't have. "It's okay, baby," I managed to whisper, my voice barely holding. But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. I wanted to grab her hand, weave through the crowd, and leave this glittering cage behind. My legs trembled under the table, urging me to stand, to move, to do anything but sit here and take it. But I was paralyzed, caught between the shame flooding my veins and the need to shield Riley from the truth, that her family saw her mom as less than nothing. The laughter began to fade, replaced by the clink of silverware and murmured conversations, but the damage was done. I forced myself to breathe, to focus on Riley's hand in mine, her warmth the only thing keeping me grounded. I was ready to stand, to gather our things and slip out quietly, dignity be damned. But before I could move, a chair scraped loudly against the floor. Lucas stood at the head table, his face pale, his jaw set like stone. He stepped toward the microphone, and the room fell silent, every head turning, every breath held. My heart stopped. Whatever was coming next, I knew it wasn't part of Victoria's script. The silence in the room was deafening, like the air itself was holding its breath. Lucas stood at the head table, the microphone in his hand, his eyes locked on me. Not Victoria, not Eleanor, not the sea of guests still clutching their drinks. His face was tight, not with anger exactly, but with something heavier, like he'd just seen something he couldn't unsee. My hand rested on Riley's, her fingers curling into mine, and I braced myself, expecting him to smooth things over, to toss out a charming line to make the laughter start again. That's what my family did, gloss over the cracks, call it a joke, move on. But Lucas didn't smile. "Chloe, don't leave," he said, his voice low but firm, cutting through the hush like a blade. I froze, halfway out of my chair, my purse dangling from my shoulder. Every head swiveled toward me, then back to him. Victoria's mouth parted, but no sound came out. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, her wineglass paused midair. Lucas stepped out from behind the table, his movements slow, deliberate, like he was carrying something fragile. He didn't look at the crowd, didn't acknowledge the whispers starting to buzz like static. He kept his gaze on me, and for the first time that night, I didn't feel invisible. "I can't stand here and pretend what just happened was okay," he said, the microphone amplifying every word. "I won't let cruelty pass as comedy." The room seemed to shrink, the chandeliers dimming under the weight of his tone. Guests shifted in their seats, some staring at their plates, others exchanging glances like they'd forgotten how to blink. "I heard Victoria and Eleanor earlier today," he continued, his voice steady but sharp. "They planned this, planned to make Chloe the punchline, to get a laugh at her expense. That's not a speech. That's a setup." A gasp rippled through the crowd, soft but unmistakable. Victoria's face drained of color, her perfect posture crumbling as she gripped the edge of the table. Eleanor leaned forward, her lips pursed, but Lucas didn't give her a chance to interrupt. He turned to me, his eyes softening just enough to make my chest ache. "Chloe, you showed up today. You brought your daughter to celebrate, sat in the back, smiled through it all. And they turned that into a joke." He paused, letting the words settle. "That's not family. That's not love." Riley tugged at my sleeve, her voice a whisper. "Mom, is he talking about us?" I nodded, unable to speak, my throat tight with something I hadn't felt in years. Gratitude, maybe, or the shock of being seen. Lucas glanced at her, his expression softening further. "Riley," he said, loud enough for the room to hear, "your mom's stronger than anyone here. Don't ever forget that." Riley's eyes widened, a tiny smile flickering before she pressed closer to me, her warmth grounding me in the chaos. Lucas turned back to the crowd, his jaw tightening again. "I've heard a lot about family while planning this wedding, about tradition, loyalty, appearances. But what I saw tonight, that was mockery dressed up as celebration. Chloe didn't ask for a spotlight. She didn't ask for pity. She just came to be here, and you laughed at her for it." His voice rose slightly, not loud, but piercing. "If this is what family means to some of you, I'm not sure I want to be part of it." The room gasped again, louder this time. A woman at a nearby table whispered, "Is he serious?" Someone's fork clattered against a plate. Victoria stepped toward him, her hand reaching out, but Lucas didn't look at her. He set the microphone down with a soft thud, the sound echoing in the stunned silence. Then he walked past her, past the head table, past the guests frozen in their seats, and headed straight for the door. The crowd watched, motionless, as if waiting for a cue that never came. I stood there, Riley's hand in mine, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Victoria's voice broke the quiet, sharp and desperate. "Lucas, wait." But he didn't turn back. The door swung shut behind him, and the fairy tale glow of the night shattered. Whispers exploded across the tables, glasses clinked nervously, and I realized every eye was on me again. Not mocking this time, but waiting, wondering what I'd do next. The reception hall felt like it had been hollowed out, the air heavy with the echo of Lucas's departure. No one spoke at first, just a low hum of whispers and the faint clink of a glass tipping over somewhere. Victoria stood at the head table, her hands clenched, her face a mask of shock and something sharper, humiliation, maybe, or the realization that her perfect day had just unraveled. Eleanor's chair scraped back, her voice slicing through the quiet. "That boy's got some nerve," she snapped, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ruining everything over nothing." But her words didn't land like they usually did. The room didn't rally to her side. It just watched, waiting. I looked down at Riley, her eyes wide, searching mine for direction. She clutched my hand, her fingers small but fierce, and I knew I couldn't stay in this room another second. Not for Victoria, not for Eleanor, not for the guests staring like I was part of some twisted show. I straightened, smoothing my dress, and grabbed Riley's little purse from the table. "Come on, baby," I said softly. "We're going home." She nodded, no questions, just trust, and that alone gave me the strength to move. As I guided Riley toward the exit, the crowd parted, a sea of sequins and suits stepping aside. Some avoided my eyes, their heads bowed to their plates or their phones. Others looked at me with something new. Pity, maybe, or respect, I couldn't tell. I didn't care. My heels clicked against the polished floor, steady, deliberate, each step pulling me further from the weight of their laughter. Riley stayed close, her rhinestone dress catching the light, a reminder of why I'd come here in the first place, for her, for the hope of something better. Halfway to the door, a voice stopped me. "Chloe." It was my Uncle Henry, standing near a table of distant relatives, his face pale, his hands trembling slightly. He stepped forward, his tie loose, his eyes rimmed with regret. "I should have said something," he said, his voice low, almost lost in the hum of the room. "Not just tonight, years ago." I'm ashamed I didn't. I blinked, caught off guard. Henry had always been kind in his quiet way, but he'd never stood up to Eleanor, never challenged the way she cast me out. I nodded, my throat too tight to answer. "It's okay," I managed, though we both knew it wasn't. But his words, small as they were, felt like a crack in the wall I'd been pushing against my whole life. Riley tugged my hand, ready to keep moving, and I turned back toward the exit. The double doors loomed ahead, promising air, freedom, a chance to breathe without the sting of judgment. I didn't look back at Victoria, didn't check if Eleanor was still glaring, didn't care if Sarah was still filming. Let them keep their spotlight. I had Riley, and that was enough. As we stepped into the foyer, the noise of the reception faded, replaced by the soft hum of the night outside. We crossed the parking lot, the cool air brushing my skin, lifting the heat from my cheeks. Riley looked up at me, her voice small but clear. "Mom, is Lucas a hero?" I paused, glancing at the stars peeking through the clouds. "He's just someone who did the right thing," I said, smiling down at her. "Sometimes that's what heroes look like." She nodded, satisfied, and climbed into the back seat of our car, clutching her cider-stained program like a keepsake. I slid into the driver's seat, my hands steady on the wheel. The estate's lights glowed in the rearview mirror, shrinking as we pulled away. For the first time all night, I felt light, like I'd left something heavier than my rented dress behind. I didn't need their approval, their laughter, their pity. I had my daughter, my dignity, and the quiet certainty that I was done shrinking to fit their story. As we drove into the dark, Riley hummed softly, and I knew we'd be okay, better than okay. But something told me this wasn't the end of the night's surprises. The next morning, I woke to the soft patter of rain against my apartment window, Riley still asleep in her bed, her rhinestone dress draped over a chair like a relic from a fairy tale gone wrong. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the counter, the screen lighting up with texts and notifications from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them at first, pouring coffee, trying to shake the fog of last night. But when I finally glanced at the messages, my stomach flipped. A friend from the wedding, Lauren, had sent a link with a single line, "Chloe, you need to see this." I clicked it, and there it was, a video of Lucas's speech, already at 60,000 views and climbing. I watched it on mute at first, my hands trembling as the scene replayed, Lucas at the microphone, his face set, his words slicing through the room. Me, frozen at table 12, holding Riley's hand, my face a mix of shock and gratitude. The comments below were a flood. Strangers calling Lucas a king, praising his courage, and to my surprise, cheering for me. "This woman's a warrior," one read. "Every single mom deserves this kind of backup," said another. I scrolled, my coffee forgotten, each word chipping away at the shame I'd carried for years. For once, the world wasn't laughing at me. It was standing with me. Victoria didn't waste time. By noon, her social media was in damage control, a post calling the night a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. She wrote about family humor and sensitive guests, but the replies weren't kind. People linked the video, called her out, asked why she'd targeted me. Her perfect image cracked, and I felt no urge to fix it. My phone kept buzzing. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, a great-aunt, even a guest I vaguely remembered in a green dress, all offering apologies or explanations. I let them go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. Riley was my focus, sitting at the table, sketching Lucas with a cape, her tongue poking out in concentration. That afternoon, a delivery arrived, a small box with no return address. Inside was a silver necklace, a tiny pendant engraved with "Unbreakable." A note tucked beside it read, "Chloe, your story gave me the guts to stand up to my own family. Thank you." No signature, just those words, and I held the pendant tight, my eyes stinging. I didn't cry, but I felt something shift, like a door opening I hadn't known was there. Riley peeked over. "Who's it from, Mom?" she asked. "Someone kind," I said, slipping it around my neck, the weight of it grounding me in a way I hadn't expected. Riley changed after that night, too. She asked bigger questions, her pencil pausing mid-drawing. "Why do some people hurt others, Mom?" she'd say, or was Lucas scared when he talked? I answered as best I could, telling her kindness takes courage, that standing up isn't always loud, but it's always right. One evening, she looked up from her sketchbook, a grin spreading. "Mom, I think you're cooler than Aunt Victoria." I laughed, ruffling her hair, feeling my shoulders lift. "You're pretty cool yourself, kiddo," I said, and for the first time in years, I believed I might be enough. The buzz around the video didn't fade. It hit 200,000 views by the next day, shared across platforms I didn't even use. Lauren texted again, "You're famous, Chloe." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't deny the strange warmth of it. Not fame, but validation, like the world had finally seen me as more than Eleanor's punching bag. Then came the voicemail, late that night. Eleanor's voice clipped and cold. "Chloe, this mess is on you. Victoria's devastated, Lucas is gone, and you're just sitting there letting it happen. Fix it." I listened, my jaw tight, then deleted it before it could finish. I didn't owe her a rescue. Not anymore. As I tucked Riley in, her drawings scattered across the floor, I realized the night hadn't just broken something. It had built something, too. I wasn't the same woman who'd walked into that wedding, hoping for scraps of acceptance. I was someone new. Someone who could wear unbreakable and mean it. But Eleanor's words lingered, a shadow I couldn't quite shake, hinting at a storm that wasn't done with me yet.